Perfect. Okay, hi everybody. So just for this again, welcome to class today. And I just mentioned to the participants here that Rinpoche is stuffing the stupa today, which is really amazing. And he's doing it again on Friday. I think we're going to go then temple here in Nelson. So I think some participants class that are here often might be helping with that today. So it's and so thank you for the people that have come. This is our question and answer, just sort of a bit of a review session on the Karma class. So let me just start with the Heart Sutra for us here. Great. Okay. We're just kind of a bit of a short meditation today, just because I'd like to just for us to spend time talking, discussing and stuff. So starting with Heart Sutra. Homage to perfection wisdom, the Blessed Mother. As I've heard, at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir in Mass Vulture's Mountain, with a great assembly of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. At that time also Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, was looking perfectly at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, looking perfectly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then through the power of Buddha, Venerable Sariputta said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, how should a son of the lineage trained who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Form is empty and emptiness is form. Emptiness is none other than form. Form is also none other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. They're not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there's no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomena. There is no I element and so forth, up to no mentality element, also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Fasting utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all the Buddhas reside perfectly in the three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest, complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, unsurpassed mantra, the equal and the unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayatam Gada Gada Paragada Parsam Gadi Bodhisoha. Shariputra, bodhisattva, great beings should train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. And the Blessed One arose from that concentration, said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, that had spoken well. Good, O son, just like that. Since it's like that, just as you have revealed, in that way the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. And the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Okay, so we can just take a moment to just do a quick meditation here. Visualize ourselves seated in a wide open space, surrounded by all sentient beings. It's our mother on our left, father on our right, people we love the most behind us as support, people we like the least to have issues with in front of us as objects of our prayers and healing and compassion. And going outwards in this vast open space, like a big plane, you can think of people from all over the world, different countries and backgrounds, all the natural ecosystem, the animal realm here, just the natural ecosystem of the earth, insects, plants, animals, and so forth, everything here. Giant forest or jungle, countless spirit beings from the spirit world, celestial beings like demigods and gods, and countless beings from lower states of rebirth, from the hungry ghost realm and hell being realm, different hell So the whole sort of cosmos is here with us. And beautiful blue dome above us, and in the sky in front of us is Buddha Shakyamuni, made out of pure light or energy, sort of floating in the sky here. Think of a big sun or full moon. And he's in lotus position, wearing the three robes of the monk. In his left hand, he's holding the begging bowl of medicinal nectar, and right hand is touching the earth in the subduing mantra. And at his heart is his higher angelic form, the Sambhogakaya form, conqueror Vajradhara, with his partner Vajradhatu Ishvari. And they're in sexual embrace, wearing crowns and robes and so forth, the beautiful dark blue bodies like sapphire blue. And he's holding a bell in his left hand, Dorji in his right. She's got a curved chopper knife in her right hand and skull cup of medicinal nectar in her left. Okay. So taking refuge here, I and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Generating bodhicitta, through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. From our heart, let's generate four measurable thoughts of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So wanting all beings to be happy, not wanting them to suffer, wanting the great sort of bliss and joy of enlightenment, and then wanting to have equanimity, so sort of being in balanced mental frame beyond sort of hope and desire, attachment and aversion, but rather having sort of a calm, open, warm, friendly attitude towards all beings. So may everyone be happy, may everyone be free from misery, they will never be separated from their happiness, and may everyone have equanimity, free from attachment and hatred. And some practice here in front of the Buddha to make our path and practice here Buddhist. So first of all, being prostration, showing signs of respect, devotion, sort of self-overcoming here, kind of the refuge field. Offering, opening our hearts up in generosity, just being concerned and caring for other people. So just symbolizing this, we can make offerings to Buddha Shakyamuni. Here, beautiful flowers, candles, and so forth. Compassion and rejoicing, so owning and acknowledging our shortcomings and sort of bad habits and character flaws and all the bad things we've done to hurt other people, to hurt ourselves, wanting to purify them, overcome them, outgrow them. And rejoicing in all the good things we've done, all of our virtues and good habits and wonderful things everyone else is doing in the world, especially all the different holy beings as well. Asking our teachers and all holy beings to stay with us and to teach. So first of all, offering up a wonderful square white lion throne that dissolves into Buddha Shakyamuni's lotus seat there. Asking all the Buddhas and all holy beings, all of our gurus, to always stay with us and to guide us. And then sending up from our hands here a golden eight-spoked Dharma chakra, sort of symbolizing our desire to wish them to always guide us and to teach us Dharma. And now finally dedicating everything that we've done, even just what we're doing here this morning, this meditation, for the awakening of all sentient beings. At heart level, final offering here of generosity, purified universe, the mantle offering. The ground sprinkled with perfume and spread with flowers, the great mountain, four-land sun and moon, seen as a Buddha land and offer thus, may all beings enjoy its pure lands. I send forth this jeweled man with you, precious Guru, Solomon and Guru Mandala. And receiving blessings now from Buddha Shakyamuni's heart, from Ashi, so that sort of heart center of the divine couple, Vajradhara and Vajradhara. Let's visualize gold and light coming down like sunlight, blessing us and all sentient beings, just like sunbeams from the sun outside when it sort of pops through the clouds. Spiritual blessings, positive energy, empowerment, initiation, so forth. Just like a garden or plants growing in the sun, just feel that we're growing in our spiritual development here. This energy. Okay. So request, please, Buddha Shakyamuni, bless our body, speech, and mind. So this request here, we can visualize that he starts to melt into light. So becoming just more like a sun of golden light, sort of dissolving inwards into his heart, into the divine couple, Vajradhara and Vajradhara. And then they get really small in the sky, size of a little gemstone or so. Come down to the crown of our head and descend into our hearts. And once they dissolve into our hearts, feel great, great awakening, spaciousness, and just feel that all the compassion and the wisdom and power of all the Buddhas is directly in us now. And now we can feel ourselves transform into Buddha Shakyamuni himself, being out of pure light. It's almost like a hologram, or just something made out of lasers, or something just like pure luminous golden light. Three robes of a monk and holding a little begging bowl in our lap here with the subduing mudra and lotus position. Golden light is coming from our heart and transforming all the other beings around us into Buddha Shakyamunis. It's just like we see all the little stupas or little rupas, sasas, and so forth. Around Buddha statues are going into them into stupas. Millions of little Buddha statues. You can just feel the same thing on this vast open plain. All countless sentient beings have all been transformed into Buddha Shakyamuni now. Again, it's not like we're statues or like made out of plastic or something, just we're made out of pure light. So it's almost like a whole plane of stars. And just like the old analogy of Indra's net, where Indra throws a whole basket of diamonds, sort of chief of the gods, Hindu gods, and all the diamonds fall on the ground, and all of them reflect one another. Just feel all the energy going out in all directions from ourselves as Buddha Shakyamuni is sort of connecting with all the other golden energy from all the other Buddha Shakyamunis around us. So it's like Indra's net. You can just feel this sort of vast connection of all of us together here. Okay, so just coming out of meditation here. That's a little short one today. I just figured it just because if we're going to spend time talking and stuff, we don't have too much time. We got about 45 minutes here. Want enough time for discussion. Okay, so I had sent out a list of things we can talk about. We don't necessarily have to talk about any of that if people, obviously don't want or so. I just wanted to have something if people don't have a lot of questions, so just sort of some things we can bring up and discuss. But just to start, any questions or comments just about the stuff on karma, or what do you guys think? Sort of the first part here.
Morning, Matthew.
Hello, how are you?
And everyone. I didn't get the email. I didn't open my email in the last couple of days. So,
Okay.
and I didn't get a lot of questions together. So I'm kind of whatever anybody else says. And if a question comes up, I'll ask it.
That sounds good. Okay, no worries. That's fine. This is, well, you know what it's like, just at, class at school or university classes when, any questions and no one has any questions, right? It's classic thing. So, but like I said, I prepared some for us to talk about. But
Cool.
Anybody else? Like I know, Patricia, you sort of asked a question about offering your practice. Remember that? That was something
I do, absolutely. I wasn't sure if I should bring that up now. Yeah. If that's something you can speak to, that would be great.
Well, what do you think? Just to start, like,
well,
someone says that would, like, if you read that in a prayer, or someone sort of makes reference to that in a teaching, what's your understanding of that?
I mean, the whole offering thing comes up in different contexts, and in some ways I go, okay, like I don't even give it a second thought. But I think within the context of this idea of offering your practice to your guru, I don't know what that means in practical terms. And it's something one frequently hears, and I know there's great importance to it. So I would just like to know in practical terms, okay, what does that mean and how does that go about it? Like I can say, okay, I offer this to Rinpoche, but I'm not sure if that means like I'm doing it for his benefit, offering the merit to him. Does that give you enough of a...
Sure. Like in the end, it's kind of funny, but there's two ways of, like, on one level, everything you're doing is for yourself to get enlightened. Obviously, it's your spiritual path, right? But then in your intention is that basically everything you're doing is also for everyone else's benefit, right? Because technically, when you become Buddha, you're going to lead all sentient beings to the same state. So in this very personal, at times fairly solipsistic path that you're on of your own personal awakening, it ends up including everybody. And that's why your awakening ends up being everyone else's awakening as well. And literally, when you graduate Buddhist school and you become a Buddha, what do? You just emanate in billions of different forms as teachers, teaching emptiness and karma to all sentient beings. So they end up in that same state. It's sort of an in-house college where everyone becomes, you go from kindergarten, then you become a teacher at college, teaching all the other people going through it, right? But in terms of offering your practice, there's probably a lot of different ways to understand that. The way I feel, the way I kind of look at that is like they say, offering your practice to your teacher or something. This is something, we were told, like when I first started studying Dharma, our teacher, might have been his birthday, or I can't remember what it was, or we would just thank him for a certain, the end of a class or something. And, again, no applause, just money. Haha. No, he never asked for anything. But what he always said is, the greatest gift you can give me is to actually just do this. In other words, like that's the offering, is that as a teacher, if you're teaching the students, if they actually learn the material and apply it, And, you know, if the teacher is, like I say, almost like a fitness instructor, and you're going to the gym and getting little handouts and they're showing you how to work the weights, but you never do anything at the gym. You just sit there and update Instagram. Oh, I'm at the gym again. And you actually never do any weights. You never do cardio, you never do anything. Kind of what's the point, right? And I mean, we all have this, like, you know, I always feel like a bit myself sometimes of a bit of a fraud or a sucker with this kind of stuff where, you know, you attend all these high teachings and everything. And I'm just like, well, hey, I'm not even doing good LamRim practice. What, you know, what makes me think here I really deserve to be at these completion stage teachings or something? Like, but we're all, you know, we're all trying. It's all a path, and we're all doing the best we can depending on where we are at that time, right? Teachings. But that's always I feel the best offering is that when you can actually just do it. Your teacher gives you the instructions and just do it. So then it's almost being like in the very traditional teacher-student relationship you get in spiritual traditions, where you do the practice and then come back and say, okay, I did it. This is what happened. What do you think? Am I doing it wrong? Or, and some of them, like tradition, like a lot of, not just in Tibetan Buddhism, obviously, with Zen, and even just in martial arts, or all sorts of different teacher-student relationships. Do you have this kind of a dynamic? Like if it's functioning properly, you get personal instruction, personal advice, you apply it in your own life, and then you check back. And that's the real function of a teacher, like at a deeper level, when they're not just sort of giving public talks or whatever, but they're getting personal advice, tailored personal advice for the specific applications that you're doing in your life. And that's an offering. And teachers are always happy, probably the happiest when you're doing that kind of work. So that's what you can offer up even at the end of the retreat. It's like, okay, the retreat, I spent 2 weeks or a month or whatever. I did it. I tried. I did my best. Here's what happened. I offered this to you, gurus, and to the Buddhas. And they're just happy because you're walking the path. You're slowly walking towards enlightenment, doing all this stuff. That's how I understand it. And I know even I had a friend years ago saying that, you know, you can offer your practice even to Dharma protectors as a way of them protecting you, which is kind of an interesting idea, that it's just like, here's checking with them, all just Buddhist angels. Here's what I'm doing. You know, I'm doing this retreat. I'm studying and contemplating every little bit by bit. I offer this to you. In other words, please protect me in this process. Help me overcome my own obstacles. Help me protect myself, from my, you know, sort of bad habits, or all the ways sort of I fail myself in this process, right? So does that kind of makes it okay?
Thank you.
It's a big discussion, but that's something anyway. So
yeah. That gives me what I need. Just I got lost in the languaging or overthinking it or something, and yeah, that's just clear and simple. Thank you, very kind.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, but that's a really good one, and that's, I think, you know, that's what, you know, teachers I've always heard say is kind of like the greatest gift you can give is to actually do it and actually put the teachings into practice. And again, it's personal advice, not as some kind of intellectual thing or sort of system things that where you believe you're not really doing, but you just believe, I'm a Buddhist, I believe in Buddhism, but you're actually not doing it. And I remember one talk, it might have been I went to, I can't remember, by Geshe Michael Rochi many years ago, and he said, especially in the context of Tibetan or Tantric Buddhism, he said, don't, the way he put it is, don't be a professional Dharma student. And what he meant by that is that, and again, like it comes off sounding judgmental because you don't know other people. So I'm saying this that, oh, you notice people, but I'm just saying, you know, you don't know where people are at. But just for the pedagogical example, he said, don't be like these people that don't practice. Like they go see the Dalai Lama when he comes to town. They have thangkas. They've got them all around their hand. They go to the Tibetan Buddhist movie festival. There's a new Tibetan Buddhist book that comes out, so they go to the book signing, and they go to all the cultural events. Then they go on some tour to Bhutan and whatever, and they know all lamas and show up and you know, have tea with them and stuff. But they don't meditate. They're not actually doing any practice. And again, you don't want to judge and sound like, oh, these are bad people, these are losers. But I'm just saying, in a sense that the most important thing you can do with any of this stuff isn't the bells and whistles of having all the gear or knowing all the right people, reading all the books, but actually walking the path and applying it in your personal life and actually doing it. And that's the most important thing. And that's why you can just be sort of the high practitioner of just being in the anonymous yogi or yogini at home in your basement or in a cave somewhere or at the cottage or whatever, by yourself, meditating on emptiness or LamRim, and no one has to know about it. Like, that's the real work. And that's the hard work. And that's, it's much easier just to be the professional Buddhist person running around putting Instagram updates or social media updates every day. Oh, hey, just, got another Tonka, whatever, making another Torma or whatever. But actually doing the work is very anonymous and very unsexy and very, very difficult. And that's why it's hard. It's much easier just to become the professional Dharma student or the celebrity Buddhist guy running around doing stuff, but actually just doing the practice every day, doing your commitments, doing retreats is very, very challenging because it's self-overcoming, right? It's very hard. So I've always remembered that. I sort of check back. It's like, okay, just make sure to always do the work in a real way. Okay, anything else? Or we can always sort of discuss some of the things I put out there in the email. So
Matthew.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like you to just speak a little bit about the very first question you had was the link between karma and emptiness. I think I would love to hear you articulate that one more time, because it's
Sure. Well, what I always do the annoying thing of answering a question with a question, but what do you throwing it back on you, Marcia? What do you think? Like when you hear that question? And again, this isn't to whatever to test you, make you look like an idiot. Like I'm just, what are your thoughts on this? This is of course extremely deep, right? So we're all just working at studying this. But what do you think? What do you understand by that? How do you approach that?
I don't think I can articulate it very well. I think I know all of these questions. I know that I've thought about with you and with reading, and I think I know, but it's actually putting into words like you do that is so difficult. I think that well, I just can't at this moment.
No worries. It's not a test. I was just, I like sharing to get people's.
Well, I appreciate that, but I just don't, it's not coming to me at this moment.
No worries. And again, you'll see that once we do the next course on Diamond Cutter, in subsequent courses, this is the theme that keeps coming back again and again and again. So it's sort of, why it comes back again and again and again is it's basically, you could say the golden kernel or the heart teaching of Buddhism, as we understand it in Tibetan Buddhism and the Gelugpa tradition in particular. So it's a theme that comes back in a lot of ways. When I was in philosophy all those years ago, and studied famous German philosopher Hegel is one of the greatest systems in Hegel's logic. And what my teacher always called it is the story, right? In a sense that once you know the logical story that Hegel teaches, you can see it anywhere in your life. And that was, anyway, I don't want to get into Western philosophy, but he always called it the story, right? And so you can see it. And that's what Hegel's whole point was when he wrote the Phenomenology of Geist and Science of Logic, is that once you understand how we make meaning through language that we share with one another in history, that matrix, so to speak, is in everything that we do. And so whatever we approach through politics or history or culture or anything else, you can see the story that we're all trying to make sense together, blah, blah, blah. And it's the same thing, I think, with karma and emptiness, is that it's the story. Once we see it, you can see it basically in all the Buddhist teachings. It comes back again and again and again. And basically, until you get it and really realize that you're here in samsara, right? This is the fundamental lesson we all have to learn. So that's I guess wanted to sort of in teaching this course on karma, this is the main teaching that I wanted to sort of for us to really study together. I mean, it's been another stuff we've talked about as well, but basically you could sort of, I'm a little maybe spaced out today. I'm not too sure if I'm going to be as eloquent as I need to be on this. But the central teaching that Buddha taught, like, a lot of people say, oh, what's important about how would I say, like, what was the most important thing Buddha taught on? Oh, well, love and compassion, da, da, da. Well, just about every religion talks about love and compassion, right? You don't have religions that don't have that. There are spiritual teachings that don't have that in it. So what makes Buddhism unique? Like, what's kind of like the unique message? Other religions have a unique message. Like, let's say Christianity, you could argue that the unique message would be, let's say, forgiveness. Whereas, let's say in Islam, it might be surrender. What does it really mean to surrender to God, or blah, blah, blah. I'm not a Christian or Muslim, so I'm not experts here. But with Buddhism, we could say that no matter what the tradition or lineage that we practice of Buddhism, there's so many different kinds. But the central teaching you get, sort of the unique teaching that Buddha taught, was emptiness. That's the central teaching. And of course, you could have it more of a Hinayana or more Theravada old school, where the central focus is on wisdom and emptiness, or a Mahayana great scope or great view school or tradition, where we see the link between emptiness and compassion for all beings, or bodhicitta, right? But no matter what, emptiness is the central, I guess, doctrine, or I guess sort of the central platform of the teachings that Buddha taught. And that's what made it different than anything that had come before. Because what's interesting, I remember Tsongkhapa Rinpoche saying this, is that usually in religions or spiritual teaching, there's some indivisible remainder, that there's something that's going to really real, or really, really important, or really something that persists, or is eternal, or infinite, or undying amidst everything else. And that's kind of what the religion ends up getting you to see, or to sort of realize. But what's interesting about Buddha's teachings, that when he taught, is that he said that the critical attitude goes all the way down. In other words, when we do logical analysis or analysis in our meditation or experience, everything is impermanent, or everything is interrelated. There's nothing standing outside of a system of relationships. So, and that's what we mean by emptiness. So we can't say that there is a God separate from this, or a soul separate from this, or a higher self separate from this, or a world separate from this. Everything is interrelated. Now, if everything is interrelated, as we know, then nothing has its own quote unquote nature. Nothing, in Tibetan, they say, exists from its own side. Or in other words, exists outside of us, out of being related to anything else, right? So that's what emptiness is that things are empty of that impossible way of existing, empty of, or do not have a self nature. Okay, so we know that. I mean, you guys know all this. So how does this relate to karma? Well, that's one side of the equation. It's basically two sides of a coin here. That's what we call sort of the ultimate nature of things. But what we call the conventional nature, everyday nature of things, is that things are related to one another, all systems of relationships. And how is that system of relationships best understood? How do things change? How do things move? How are things related? Well, they're related in a relationship of causality, causes and effects. Things are produced from one another. And that's what you see when you meditate, that things are always changing, but things aren't changing in a random order, or an orderless order, or a chaos. Things have a kind of logic to them, right? Seasons, flows, change. Aristotle always said change has to have a continuum, otherwise it's replacement. In other words, when I have the little acorn growing into a little sapling and then into a tree, an oak tree that drops acorns, I know it's the same thing. I can say, when I look at this acorn or sapling, or the little leaves coming up, or the small tree or the big tree, I know that they're the same tree. But if the acorn all of a sudden becomes a garbage truck, you don't think, oh, wow, that's great. Like, acorns are making garbage trucks. Now you think, well, there's been a replacement. Somehow it's become something different. It's no longer the same thing, right? So there's a continuum of change. And he said that continuum of change we understand best through cause and effect. So it's the same thing with Buddhism, is that how we understand change or impermanence when we're looking around the illusory quality of everything changing and not having a nature flowing like a river, or being in a state, talking more Nietzschean terms of becoming, beings whose being is becoming, so to speak, right? The best way to understand it, that is causality. And that's what karma is. Karma is just causality, or the movement of the mind in having kind of a logical sense too, or in terms of continuums, which means we can understand them. That's the most important thing. It's just like when in Aristotle, we understand what physics, or the study of nature. Once we understand the different kinds of causalities, like in Aristotle, sense, material cause, formal cause, efficient cause, final cause. That's Aristotle. We don't have to know it, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just saying, once we understand causes, then things make sense. We can talk about them, we can study them, we can have a science. Well, it's the same thing here. Once we understand how things move or change according to causes, and in this case, we're looking at it experientially, right? So we're not, as Buddhists, we're not studying spider mating habits or geology or how rivers work or supernovas. Buddha could have taught all this, but that was irrelevant, because Buddha said, I am teaching salvation from suffering. I'm teaching the end of suffering and how to find happiness. So if that's the case, we look at the human soul, we look at the mind. So we're looking at causality or karma in a specific sense, which is human karma, human causality. So basically the movement of the mind, the changing of the mind, the changing of people's souls. That's what Buddha's teaching, and that's why Buddha's silence. He wouldn't, when people said, oh, well, how old's the world, or what's happening there in this constellation, or do you know, in different alternate realities, Buddha's silence. He's like, that's not what I'm teaching. I'm here to teach salvation from suffering. So I'm teaching causality or karma in terms on an ethical or moral level, how you can stop suffering and how you can become happy. Okay, so that's the causality we're looking at. But you see, when you study causality or study, impermanence, you see that things are natureless. They're in their relationships, they're changing. Causes produce effects, effects come from causes. They're in a relationship. So neither one exists independently of the other one. They're interdependent, or interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say. So you see that conventional reality and ultimate reality, the two truths are the same thing. You can't have one without the other. And that's the link of karma and emptiness. Once we are studying karma, we're always studying emptiness. Once you're studying emptiness, you're always studying karma. Why is this important? Because this is sort of like, I guess, the best teaching anyone can give you is that when you start studying karma and emptiness, you see that on an ultimate nature, everything has no nature, which means everything is possible, right? Everything is blank. Reality itself is completely plastic. So if reality is completely plastic, anything can happen, you're completely free, right? Everything's free. So the next question you have to ask, if anything could happen, you're 100% absolutely free, why are things happening the way they're happening? In other words, when you look at your life, what's the logic of it? Like what are the forces, the energies, the dynamic qualities to it? Like, why, if anything can be anything, why are things happening the way they're happening, in the way they're happening for me, right? That's the teaching on karma. That's why you teach karma. And so you basically see the principles of karma, like we said, is that when you study karma, is that if there's a cause, there has to be an effect. If, like as karmic seed has been planted, it will ripen. If it hasn't planted, it will not ripen. Effects happen because they have causes, right? This is all just elementary logic on causality. So that's one part of it, is that for anything to happen, I have to create a cause for it. If something has happened to me, I haven't experienced something's happened, it's because there was a cause planted for it, right? So what I'm experiencing now is an effect. Everything, looking at you guys on Zoom, on my little laptop here, looking in my bedroom, everything, my experience here are all effects, which means there's been causes for that. what I'm doing now, the way I'm thinking, the way I'm talking, the way I'm acting, moving my hands around, like, you know, whatever, these are all causes that will produce a later effect. And now then, the other important thing that Buddha gives as teaching isn't just that there are causes, but also that certain causes produce certain effects. And this is the teaching that, of course, like orange seeds produce orange trees, lemon seeds produce lemon trees. So by Buddha teaching karma, teaching vows, teaching the positive things you can do, negative things to do, you end up getting kind of like a topography or geography, or like a recipe book. Like it's almost like if your life is like a landscape, the movie of your life is like a landscape. Some geologist guy is giving, or a trail guy has given you a map on how to understand the landscape, how to move around in it, how things happen in the landscape, how things happen in this country, this undiscovered country that you find yourself in. So it's not like you're stuck in the jungle or a forest, lost, not knowing where you're going or whatever. Quite the opposite. Someone gives you a map, someone tells you about the forest. Oh, this is the trail we go on. Don't eat that plant. There's a bear behind these trees. That bridge will fall down if you walk on it, blah, blah, blah. And also, this is the kind of the geographical, like, I guess, understanding the nature for the geography, I guess, in the sense like the weather systems. Well, we're in a northern climate, so you need these kinds of clothes at this time of year, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is an analogy, of course, but you see, but when you're given the teachings on karma, particularly how causes become effects, how certain causes become certain effects. In other words, if, like Buddha always said, Buddhism's basically understanding what to give up and what to cultivate. In other words, the causes you should be focusing on and the ones you shouldn't be. Focusing on virtue or positive karma that creates positive effects, staying away from the negative karma that produces the negative effects. So if that's the case, I end up writing or making the movie of the life that I want to live in, right? That's, so I'm given absolute freedom on one level, right? By giving this equation. So someone says, hey, here's a huge canvas. Here's all the paint, your little painting hat, your painting clothes. Paint whatever you want on this canvas. But you're going to be like, oh, okay, well, how do I do that? And then someone says, well, look, here's the paint set. I'm going to show you what paints work best, the colors that work. Plus, me and my friends here, we're artists. We're going to give you a little bit of a recipe book so you can paint the painting you want to paint in a really, really beautiful way, like Rembrandt or Picasso or whatever, right? Those are the teachings on karma. So really, this is, in a lot of ways, this is why I wanted to sort of share this with you guys and teach this, but the teachings on karma really are the most important things to karma and emptiness. It's the only story you really need to know in Buddhism, because it's the story, so to speak. Anything's possible. You're absolutely free. But that only makes sense. That's only made practical. That's only integrated in your life. That could only happen if you understand karma, and hence understand what has to be adopted and what has to be rejected or let go, and build your habits accordingly. So Hegel says something, I don't know if I might have said this before, but he said it's a great line that basically freedom only makes sense by unfreedom. And what he meant by that is that it's only things that you don't have control of that ends up allowing you to be free. So he has a great quote where he said, freedom lies in the recognition of necessity. So Karl Marx ends up quoting that. I mean, you see this in a lot of Marxists, but he actually got it from Hegel. And what Hegel meant by this is very interesting, is that how you're free is when you see how you are necessitated. You see all the different habits and structures that are in you that make you the kind of person you are, that makes you act a certain way. So once I see that, I can see whether I like the way I am or who I am, or I can decide accordingly. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's clear, but it's like, for instance, Hegel said, you don't have choice of the language you spoke growing up, But because, let's say, I was taught English, I can express myself, I can read and write. That wasn't my choice. I was forced as a little boy to learn English. I wouldn't be a human being. I wouldn't be able to communicate with people without that. I was taught how to wear clothes. I was taught how to bathe. I was taught, like, like your mom and father, like your great sort of bodhisattva parents that made you who you are by teaching you how to take care of yourself. That's an example of something you weren't free to do. But the point is, it's made you free now. It's giving you resources and abilities to live your life and be free and be the kind of person you want to be. Karma is the same way. You see, the freedom lies in the recognition of necessity, in the sense you're absolutely free, but you're necessitated by your habits coming into this life from past lives. All the karma in the past has put you exactly where you are right now, let's say on this Zoom call with me. So it's made you who you are. But the question, you look in the mirror, is this the kind of person I want to be? If it isn't, then I act differently. I plant different kinds of karmic seeds. So Tantra, for instance, means continuity, like a thread. And it's basically this idea that in samsara, everything's changing, but one thing that never changes is this is all the paradoxes, the constantly changing mind that you have. The mind, the subtle mind of clear light that goes life to life to life to life. That's your Buddha nature. The fact that this mind is completely clear, but also empty, so it can be anything. Your mind is the blank slate that you project onto. And it is the thing that's projecting at the same time. It's kind of, it is the movie that you're recording as well, at each moment, as well as the one that you're watching. And then there's no one watching it. So you see how it gets really, really weird, right? When we start talking about the mind. But the point is that Tantra means continuity. I can go from just being silly Matthew here in the samsaric life, going to get cancer and drop dead in a few years, to becoming an immortal diamond-like angelic being that's nothing but light and love. Why? Because this projection of myself is sort of just, again, a structured projection of karma. And if I change the karmic causes, what I'll get is a completely different form of embodiment that I'll be living in. Changing the habits, changing the causes, the effects will become different, completely different, and nothing can hold me back. Why? Because karma, again, what is this? These are just projections of your mind. They're just experiences. That's what an effect is. I don't know, is this clear? Does this make sense to people, Marcia? Is that?
That was lovely. That was what I wanted, which I couldn't articulate.
Yeah, no, but anyway, but that's the link of karma and emptiness. That's also the question I wanted to say is are you really free? Well, technically, in an absolute sense, you're absolutely free, but how you're constrained is through your karmic habits, which are changeable, right? Habits are changeable, but we all know how hard it is to, if you're like me and you used to smoke, how hard it is to break a habit. Like, let's say you want to go to the gym every day, how hard it is to do that. You want to learn a new language, how hard it is to do that. But the point is, none of those are structurally impossible. You've got your own limits, but technically you work within them, and then ultimately you can overcome them, right? So that's why, like, one of my favorite philosophers, Spinoza, always said, the biggest problem is that people are effects, whereas they think they're causes. And what he meant by that is that in this moment, the world you live in is just an effect, right? So it's done already. Like, the point is, you can't change this here now. How you have to change it is how you react to it, right? By planting new seeds karmically. And that's a freedom. So affirming what you have now by seeing that you're the one that's created it, but at the same time, you can act differently in regards to it. And once you do that with an understanding of emptiness, working through Tantra, that process starts to speed up. But it's understanding that gap. And that's why, I don't know what it is, you could probably find it. Nagarjuna says that samsara is that gap, is the ignorance you have by not seeing causes and effects being linked. Because there seems to be, there's a time gap. causes and effects can't be simultaneous. They have to be, there's a time gap between them. And in that time gap is your ignorance, because you don't think they're related. You know? So if I see a little stray cat and run up and kick it in the ass in the middle of the street, if instantly someone kicked me in the ass and I fell in the street doing that, I'd never kick that cat again, right? But the fact is, because it doesn't happen simultaneously and someone will kick me in the ass 10 years from now, I can't make the logical link between the two things, right? And because I don't understand causality. And then if I don't understand karma or causality, I don't understand how samsara works, right? Anyway, I think, to be honest, in that long sort of rant I just did right now, probably talked about a lot of the issues I had in my email here on karma and freedom and stuff like that. Anyway, people can always bring these up at a later date too. We don't, you know, in other classes and stuff, we can bring up some of these questions here. But anything else? Does anyone want to add to that, or what do you think? Maureen, what do you think?
I think,
Yeah.
I think that karma has always been one of my most unfavorite topics.
Yeah.
And I just found it really boring. I don't know why exactly. And you've really brought a lot of stuff clear to me to understand, particularly how Tantra works, why Tantra works, and the even though emptiness is still pretty vague in my understanding, to put karma and emptiness together, the little bit that I've got is really I'm enjoying. I feel more confident about my practice. I feel more inspired.
Good.
And not so hard on myself. And
well, this is it. Karma, the way I've always seen it, is on an existentialist level. Karma is the greatest teaching because it's about teaching your freedom. So the emancipatory message you get from this should be the one you take home. Like, unfortunately, a lot of times with Buddhism, it's the karma that, like when you study LamRim, it's all the scary stories, the boogeyman stories to get the little adult children to go to bed at night, right? It's, all bad karma and you're going to go to hell for, like, I always remember a friend of mine saying that, you know, traditional cultures in Asia where people believed in past and future lives, a big thing was, this might not be true, but what he said, it was that, you know, a lot of people would kind of kick the can forward, because it's just kind of like, I'll do it sometime in a future life. I'll reincarnate as a monk and that guy will do all the work. But in the meantime, I'm just kind of like coasting through this life. It's all good. I'm going to get there anyway. We all get enlightened anyway. So why bother doing it now? Whereas then it's, you know, you have teachers and lamas, oh my God, you're going to go to hell and all the bad things are going to happen to you, blah, blah, blah. So you need that kind of a message to kind of shock people into doing something a little bit, kind of spooking them out a little bit. I mean, I don't know what another friend of mine saying, felt that these kinds of teachings always backfired with Western students that have grown up in more a Judeo-Christian point of view, where, quote unquote, you only get one rebirth. In other words, you only get this life and then you only reincarnate once. And that's either in heaven or hell for all eternity. That never ends. Like, so, you know what I mean? So the stress level we have in Western countries from a Judeo-Christian context, where we're always scared of hell and go, oh my God, and So when lamas teach all the hell stuff and all the negative karma stuff, a lot of more Western people would get all upset. Oh my God, I'm never going to get in line, going to hell for all eternity. But really, that's their own cultural baggage they're bringing here, right? Like, if you've had countless past lives, you've been in heavens, you've been in hells, been there, done that. Part of the thing with samsara is getting bored of the whole show. You know, it's like being stuck watching movies forever. It's like, oh my God, I have to watch Star Wars again. Oh, I hate that. Oh, and then I have to watch the prequels or the dumb ones. I have to do, like, it's that kind of thing where they want you to get bored of the repeat button, that you have all this suffering, dissatisfaction, and dukkha. And why not do something new? Why not completely change the track of your karmic trajectory, so to speak, right? So I always figure, you know, karma, that's to teach people that everything's possible. What holds you back isn't karma. What holds you back are your bad habits and your delusions, which are completely workable. The whole point is that they're empty. They're completely reprogrammable, right? But again, we all know how strong our habits are and our delusions can be, you know. So
Yeah.
it's karma is a really, I think, a real positive message to give people. Probably the most positive thing you can ever give them, because you give them their freedom back. Like the thing with Buddhism, they always say, and Buddha always taught this, is that you are your own refuge, in the sense you're the one wholly responsible for everything, right? It's not like gods or demons or whatever. It's you in your mind. Everything's a projection mind. You created all of this. So it doesn't have to be this way. Isn't that a great teaching? That things don't have to be this way if you don't want them to be this way. I don't know. I think that's a great teaching, right? I don't have to run around blaming everybody, right? It's just,
Yeah.
you know,
I know it's a
whatever.
huge relief.
It is. I think it's wonderful. But then there's also the existentialist pressure. Then, okay, if it's all me, oh my God, the responsibility. I can't blame my mom and my dad anymore, the government or God or what. Like, I have to do the work. I can't get plucked out of this by some external force. Like, I have to do all this. I get enlightened. I mean, what Vajrayani's not going to do for me? What? I actually have to do this, you know? Oh my God. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost time. So one thing, like I said, we're going on to Diamond Cutter, where we're actually once again going to be dealing with karma and emptiness. So some of these questions that I sent out, like on what karmic seeds are, most of the answers of what I've said, I think I've actually already talked in the last few classes anyway. But one thing I did that we'll talk about maybe at a later date, for instance, like I said, what's more ethically important when deciding how to act, karmic intention or karmic consequences? And that's a big ethical question in philosophy and analytic philosophy over the last 50 years, is what counts ethically in how you're about to act. Is your intention what's most important, or trying to decide what kind of consequences arise for that? What's important? That's a good karmic question, actually. Because from a Buddhist point of view, we always say, just such a, maybe we'll end with this. I'll let you guys think about this. We always say the most important thing is intentions. But at the same time, they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? In the sense that, you know, we can, even bad people always say they're doing everybody a favor, you know, like great dictators or destroying them. They're always like, I know what you really want. I'm doing this for you. All the pressure, the great duty I have to do to make your life better as I'm making you suffer, right? So it there's a good ethical question with that, with karma. What's most important? And we always say what's most important karmically is intention. So how can I guess we could say, you know, how can I make sure that those intentions really are pure, that they really are loving and helpful and proper and these kinds of things, right? That's a good question. And then also leave you guys with another question just about the nature of karmic seeds. How, you know, we talked about it before a little bit, but really think about what are karmic seeds? How do they work? How do they ripen? What's that? What does it mean really to plant a karmic seed? You know? What is it that ripens from the seed? Of course, it's an analogy. That's all they had 2,500 years ago. They didn't have computers or fancy technology to use as an analogy. They just had simple things in your life, like, you know, seeds and vegetables and flowers and stuff like that, as to use as to illustrate things, right? Anyhow, how's that? How about we end there? It's as always an unfinished conversation, but at least we sort of got started talking about a lot of this stuff. So. Sound good? Okay, great. So let's do a dedication here, and through the blessings of all holy beings, the truth of karma, the power of our pure spirit intention, may all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled, and all sentient beings reach awakening. And in particular, like, let's just, as always, just really try and understand that link between karma and emptiness. What is that link? What is karma? What is emptiness? How do they go together? How can I realize this in my personal life, like this teaching? How can I really act on it and live it as a path and as an art in my life to benefit others? What does that mean? What does that look like? and that we keep studying this and sharing it with one another. Okay, thanks everybody. Let me just press stop here.